available in Spanish or in other languages and all of that. So this slide just really hits home for me, like why we have to make sure we advocate for things like equal pay, for a fair living wage, because it is things like poverty that make people more likely to, have to work in dangerous jobs or overwork themselves and be put in dangerous positions. So yeah, just centering all women and truly meaning that is really, really important. So on the workplace, right, if sexual harassment is going on, what's the impact? Well, one, the individual employees are more likely to report psychological symptoms like PTSD, anxiety, stress, and also physical problems. These things take a toll on our bodies, whether that means, not getting enough sleep or having headaches or losing your appetite or being super like tight and tense all the time. Over time, that takes a lot on our bodies. It's also found that it impacts other employees and witnesses of what's happened. So if you see something happen and no one says anything, or you're told to be quiet and not report it, that actually is seen to really like lower morale and make it bad for like everyone involved, not just the individual it's happened to. And then the business itself can also like face damages like a loss of productivity and turnover rates and reputational harm. That one I put in there because it's like, how are we going to get businesses to care when businesses really just care about the bottom line? It's like, how are we going to get you to care about the people? It's costing you money. So that's where I like to come from too when trying to say like why should we do this? It actually has like a monetary reason too. I think just because is a good enough answer, but having that information could be helpful if you do want to go up to like the higher levels employees and maybe suggest a new workplace policy or something like that. And though we're talking a lot about systems, I will always, like I said, want to center the survivor, and leave time to focus on how it impacts individuals. So people who are subjected to sexual harassment may experience a range of emotional, financial, and psychological harms. And I'd say like a lot of times, especially when we have multiple marginalized identities, it's not just like sexual harassment, but it's oftentimes layered on a lot of other trauma that people have dealt with. And it's not always just a one-time thing, but something that someone's like living their life trying to figure out how to survive with all the things they're carrying. And then an instance of sexual harassment happens. It's like, imagine dealing with being sexually harassed at work while also struggling to pay the bills, while also being fearful that you might get deported, while also being scared that you're like not going to have food on the table that night for your kids. So emotional impacts of sexual harassment could be anything from fear, stress, anger, numbness, right? Financial, thinking of those statistics, we could have a loss of income if you're changing your job, missed hours, right? You might just be like, I can't even go in today. I can't even like bring myself to do that. Medical bills, right? Maybe you needed to go start seeing a therapist for what was happening. Maybe something did get physical and it wasn't just sexual harassment, it was an assault and you had to go to the doctor. Maybe you've been missing sleep so much that you can't stay awake for work and you can't go in. And then long-term psychological effects. So once this emotional stuff is like over and over and over, we start to see the long-term impacts, and that could look like PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, depression, stress, anxiety, and all of those are medical conditions. All of this can take a real toll on our lives and our well-beings, and affect our entire community. So part 3, that was a lot, right? So first, I just want everyone to take a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. One more time, in through the nose and out through the mouth. Thank you. So I'm the prevention specialist. I like to think about how can we prevent this from happening because it happens so often. And I started my career in a domestic violence shelter working with individuals. And it gets to a certain point where you're like, this isn't an individual issue, like this is a cultural problem. This is something wrong with our society because so many people are experiencing it in so many different ways. But it's all coming back to someone or something wanting power and control over another person, whether it's their body, whether it's their finances, whatever it might be. So when we're preventing sexual harassment in the workplace, there's like things we can do individually. So promoting positive social norms. So making sure we're calling out behavior if someone's saying a sexist joke, supporting things like gender equity, making sure there's that representation, believing survivors. That will always be first and foremost for me. Like, we have to believe survivors when someone comes and tells us their story. And that could just mean listening. Um, but yeah, promoting positive social norms. I think everyone on this call is doing that just by being someone in your workforce, like being women in construction. That's already flipping gender norms on its head and doing work that progresses society, in my opinion. It's like one of the reasons I was so excited to come and talk to you all today. And organizational change, right? Because though this happens to individuals, it's on organizations, it's on communities to change the culture. So I wanted to provide you guys with some concrete examples on how that could be done. And so if you look at the bottom of this slide, it's what we call the social ecological model of health. And it basically shows how we're all connected from individuals, relationships, communities, and society. And a lot of times we were focusing our efforts for prevention on individuals, right? So individuals, we were saying like, change your behavior, or maybe like put in a blue light, to if you're feeling unsafe, or like a rape whistle, right? That all puts the pressure on the individual to not experience violence or to stop violence from happening, versus saying, well, what can we do to prevent it altogether so that we don't make it the individual's responsibility? That's why things like self-defense classes are great, but they're not prevention. So first and foremost, taking a step back as an organization and doing what you need to foster a culture where sexual harassment is not tolerated. But that comes from really listening and doing the work. So that could look like a workplace assessment where you're actually surveying the people who work and saying, is this something you've experienced? Have you ever felt unsafe? Have you ever been subjected to inappropriate jokes or behavior? And actually like putting your money where your mouth is as an organization, as the people at the higher levels, to see, okay, what do we need? Most orgs will have some sort of sexual harassment policy, but it's really going above and beyond that, because having a policy is fine and dandy, but if no one knows where to access it, if no one knows like how to report, if people don't feel safe to report, then your policy is ineffective. And also bringing the voices to the table of the people who have been most impacted by this too. And also continuous training for people who are employees, but to move beyond just like, okay, I did my once a year training, like I'm good, let's go. But to have it be a continuous thing where we're talking about, it might even be more than just anti-sexual harassment, right? It might be like, bias training, understanding our own implicit biases, our own things that we carry that might affect how we interact with other people. It might look like bystander training so that we know how to interrupt a harmful conversation if we hear something happening in like a calm, effective way. So, and yeah, and just remembering your voices matter and that we're stronger together. Maybe it looks like putting together a committee or a campaign together as like your organization to talk about this stuff. So, and also bringing in survivors. I will say that most counties have their own county sexual violence program that does this work where they go and educate you on the local level. And I provide some resources around that too at the end. So I know that was a lot of information. I did just want to say if you are a survivor of workplace sexual harassment or any kind of sexual violence, that I believe you, we believe you at NJ Casa, and you are not to blame at all. Nothing, it was never your fault. It could never be your fault. Period, full stop. And also, you deserve to heal. You deserve to live and work in a safe environment. And yeah, so I did want to leave us with that there are people who are there for you, who believe you, and who want to see you thrive. So I did provide some resources. So we're the New Jersey Coalition Against Sexual Assault. There's also I know this is a national meeting, so I provided the National Sexual Violence Hotline and the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Violence is a lot more common than we think. You're not alone if it's something you've experienced. If it's something you're currently experiencing, it's not your fault. And it shouldn't be happening. And then down here's a link for state and territory coalitions. Like I said, every state has their own orgs like this one. So thank you so much. I'll stop sharing my screen in just a moment, but here's my contact information. And if you want to stay connected, please follow us on Instagram, NJ_Casa. We are having a really cool free virtual conference on May 8th and 9th that's called Creating Transformative Systems. And one of the panels is actually on the workplace and how we can prevent sexual violence and have really robust policies around that. It's free, so please feel free to attend. And I think, oh yeah, I put some works cited, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I know that was a lot. I'm happy to take any questions. And if there are no questions, I just hope that everyone can do something for themselves tonight to really center and feel grounded, because this is something that impacts everyone, even if you don't think it's directly impacted you. I'm going to stop sharing. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to let me know.
I have no questions, but I want to say that was very informative. I learned a lot of other resources, things I didn't think about as far as going to the employer and offering ideas for them to make the workplace more preventative. That's something I never really thought about that. When I heard you talking and you said preventative, the back of my mind, it's like, well, where's she going with this? How is this preventative? But those things you listed, excellent. And it is something that's easier to put in place. Now, I want to say though that this is a webinar, so a lot of our members go back later on to look at it to see if that is recorded. So we don't have a lot of members on being that this is
Wonderful.
Cross country. But
I love
thank
that.
you. Very informative.
Thank you. And I can send it over some links that I shared. I'll email you, Erica. But if there's nothing else, thank you so much for this opportunity. I oftentimes am talking to like college students and educators, which I love, but I also really like getting to speak to folks I don't always get to interact with, especially all over the country. That's so great. So
Thank you.
Awesome. We appreciate it, Natalie. Thank you so much for sharing your time and knowledge with us and being so informative.
thank you so much. And please, everyone, do something for yourselves tonight. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye. Well, for our members that are still here, I just want to add now, Natalie, she touched on it about saying something. We've got to be more, I know sometimes as women, and we're working in a male populated profession, sometimes other women will say, well, what do you expect? Like Natalie touched on, we all deserve respect. We all deserve to be in a safe working environment. There's no such thing as, oh, this is construction. Oh, that's common. No, it's not acceptable in any other industry, and it's not acceptable here in construction. I'm in a lot of Facebook groups, and I sometimes hear things like that. Oh, you got to have tough skin, you thicker skin. You got to put up with that. Well, what do you expect? Nobody expects this, and it may be hard, but we have to speak up. And even if it's not directed towards you, sometimes just saying something will put this other person in check before it escalates. If you just say, oh, that's not appropriate, even if he's not talking to you. And we all know sexual harassment happens to men also. They sometimes like to joke and say, oh, I was just kidding and whatnot. We have to speak up for everyone. Let's see.
Thank you as well, Celia. Yeah, Celia said thank you. We appreciate you joining as well. Erica, you're absolutely right. Use your voices. Be a proponent of your coworkers. Be a working gear for them and be a working voice for them just the same, right? Help each other out.
And I always say, even if you don't have the strength or you didn't think about it when it was happening right then and there, it's not too late. You can always go back and revisit this. Hey, yesterday when you said such and such, it made me feel, or that was inappropriate. And sometimes people are afraid to speak up. You can always do things anonymously. You make a phone call, email. The thing is, we're stronger together. Just to come forward, so, any way possible. Just don't let things just go by and just say, oh, what can I do? I didn't have a choice. Always just speak up. I think, let me see, I there was one other thing I wanted to add. Let me see if I saved it while she was talking. Yeah, what was it? I was always told, I took a few courses, and a lawyer said, now I'm not a lawyer, I'm not giving out any legal advice. This is what I heard. So that's the little disclaimer. They said, for no misunderstanding, that you should always speak up and say, I don't like for you to say that. Don't say that to me, because that's the first step. If you ever have to take things above to supervisors or legally, it's already been known how you feel about it. I don't like that. So that's one of the first things. And this is the one thing though I like to say, and I've seen on the job personally, and I see it in the groups that a lot of the women, we want to fit in and we want to joke and carry on and be one of the guys. But as mentioned before, guys can feel harassment also. So sometimes it's a joke, and I tell to the people, it's usually best not to even start in on a joke because you never know. You don't know how this guy's feeling because he's in construction and he wants to follow along, so he's joking with you too, and you don't want someone to feel uncomfortable. And then I feel it's always ops. You don't know who's setting you up, so you don't want to go joking and carrying on because I've seen it. I've noticed happen to someone personally. She has sexual harassment charges brought up against her because she said something jokingly because somebody else said it and she wanted to fit in. It was something, it was innocent enough. And the guy, we all believe that he said that just to make her life miserable. So I know a lot of times we say, oh, we want to fit in. We got to be mindful of how far we joke and the things that we also say too as women. Well, we're coming up on the end of our hour now. Anything else anybody would like to add?
I don't think so, Erica. You wrapped it up really well. I love the additions of information, of being mindful, and especially when you said go back and revisit it if it's something that you didn't bring up then, or it scared you to bring it up then, you know, think about it, talk about it, find somebody who you can entrust in and go to them at some point. It's going to be better, hopefully better, if you can bring it up and stop it, end it there kind of thing. But great conversation, great topic today. I hope this can reach many people out there that need this kind of information. So very good.
All right, then. Well, we'll see you guys again next month. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.